on advice from a terrific cellist who retired from the Philharmonic, he would recommend playing in your recital every day, 3 times, 2 weeks before the recital.
That is New York Philharmonic bassist David Grossman talking with John Grillo and myself about his recital preparation process. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we're rounding out this 8th best of episode that we're doing right around the holidays, finishing out 2018, getting into 2019. And this is going to feature 5 people. David Grossman, who will talk about his recital prep process, really interesting stuff. But we'll start off with Sam Suggs, who was the headliner for the classical recital at the 2017 ISB competition. One of the most fascinating recital programmers I've ever encountered. Everything he does is a suite of sorts. So this is a deep philosophical chat with Sam. Then we go into our conversation with David, followed by a clip from Marek Romanowski, one of the Bratysich competition winners from 2017. Then we go into clips from Diego Zecharies, the wonderful bassist living in Spain, talking about recital prep. And then we finish up with Jack Unzicker, talking about a subject that has become totally a big part of my life, which is using technology, specifically the iPad Pro, to organize your music. And I can't say enough good things about that setup that Jack talks about. I was a total newbie when Jack and I did this conversation. So these 5 people you're going to hear from, thank you so much to our sponsors, D'Addario Strings, Upton Bass, Steve Swan String Bass, A440 Violin Shop, and the Bass Violin Shop. We're going to start running some longer material about them in our interview episodes coming up next week. But thank you so much for making this possible, this podcast, this crazy adventure. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's dig into our conversation with Sam Suggs.
I didn't remember that I applied until I got the email that I think from Madeline about, congrats, you're in the semifinals. It was just like, oh, okay, now I've got to pull something together for this. It was, for me, it was like, the whole process was more psychological than performative. Like, okay, this is really fortunate that I'm going to have kind of an audience of bass players to share my music with. And I've been studying with Don Palma at Yale. And, he was very encouraging about kind of doing my thing, because, I remember him saying, like, if you go there, and I was going to play my compositions and kind of go after it just the way I'm naturally inclined and not try to be anyone else. He said, you're either they're going to hate it or they're going to love it. And there's no in between. So the whole time I was just thinking, what is in my control? What can I actually focus on doing rather than worrying? You worry about the competitors. You worry, it's a competition, you want to win. But in actuality, I was just focused on, like, okay, I have an audience, I want to present my thing, and it's a great opportunity. And I remember I wrote some maxims for myself that I just want to share my music. I just want to improve myself, and I just want to leave everything on the stage when I get there. So, warming up, and it's just ignoring everything around you and just focusing on, it's me performing. They want to hear me, and I am, like, so excited to share this music that I care so much about, that I've crafted. And I was able to work the requirements into a program that I felt said a lot about who I am as a player. I mean, I started with some Bottesini, because I felt like it was obligatory to do Bottesini because it was a Bottesini prize. Yeah. But I picked the Gavotte, which is like kind of I don't want to say it's a throwaway piece, but it's just kind of a cute little piece. It's not trying to be a violin concerto. It's not trying to be anything. It's just a little character piece that hopefully no one will be too offended by. Because I feel like, if you go up and you play your Bottesini concerto, and if the tempo is off by 10 clicks from what someone on the panel how they play it, because everyone plays it. Right. So if it's about an expectation and satisfaction model, the jury, if they're thinking, okay, I expect this out of a Bottesini concerto, then they have these preconceived notions, and they're not even necessarily listening to the music you're making. They're listening to how you fill in the blanks in a way, or check off the things on the list.
Right.
And so I wanted to play something that was Bottesini, but was kind of fun and just get people to smile. And then there's this weird thing where I've been to a lot of concerts where people start with Bach, and particularly when they start with like sorrowful Bach, it's kind of hard to immediately engage in terms of empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how do you empathize with somebody you don't know who's just getting up on the stage and throwing all of this like passion at you? It's really, I think, hard to connect. So I wanted to start with something fun, and then I played the David Walter Prelude, which by itself it's a beautiful piece, but I paired it with a fugue from the G minor lute suite. It's the C minor cello suite, but I was inspired by the Paolo Pandolfo Gamba recordings and some lute playing. Bach arranged it from cello to lute, and he added a bunch of chords. And it's really fascinating because, it's a different topic of conversation about authorship and what you can and can't do with a transcription. Given that Bach himself is adding harmonies that weren't in the cello part to the lute part. So there's a lot of flexibility when you're translating. It's really an issue of translation. Mm-hmm. There's a great, I think it's a Radiolab podcast about translation and ways of translating a poem, whether you do it word for word, whether you do it so that the rhyme scheme works in English, or whether you do it so that it's historically correct. There's like words in there that we no longer use. I mean, there's so many ways to translate. So I kind of translated this lute suite for bass, and then ended with one of my pieces, which is kind of a postlude. So I wanted to find something that was really kind of more pathos.
Yeah.
To balance out the fun of the Bottesini. And I felt like it was, once you're done with that, you're able to access that empathy. So I felt like the programming was really important with that. So you're not whacking anyone with your concerto that they want it another way. Because I've played Bottesini. I love the standard repertoire. And, I recall playing Bottesini. I was doing a concerto at Northwestern, and I played Bottesini for a master class. And this great teacher who was visiting told me that what I did to it, some might find offensive. And it was because, I guess it was, some things were too fast. The Andante was too fast. I interpreted it as at the time, I don't know if it was I'm still young, but if it was immature, but I interpreted the second movement of the concerto as like a da capo aria. Because you have that simple ABA form. And so, I added some fillers in the recap to kind of almost like thinking of Bottesini more like Chopin than like, I don't really know. I don't understand how we really think of Bottesini today. It's kind of in a nebulous place. But anyways, there were little things that I changed and it could be considered offensive. And so I wanted to make sure that in my programming, I for competition, same thing with an audition. You don't want to play things that are like an orchestra audition, I assume. You don't want to play anything that will offend anyone.
Right.
I mean, you need to have, you need to put it on the table, but you don't want to offend anyone. So then I followed up the triptych of the Walter Prelude, the fugue, and the postlude with, in the second round, I played the Sarabande from the second suite. I was trying to put together like an amalgamation of solo movements in a Baroque style to kind of create an amalgamation suite. Because I think there's something really mysterious and fascinating about like a false history. You know what I mean? Like,
sure, yeah.
Or an imagined history. Because for me, like with performance, why do we go see live performance and not listen to recordings and not go to movies and not go, see the newest and latest in virtual reality? We need something mysterious, I think. And so kind of combining these elements, I think, can kind of be off-putting to an audience in a way that's engaging. So I had, the prelude, the David Walter Prelude is quite romantic, but I played it in a Baroque style some of the time. It's kind of a neo-Baroque or something. I don't know exactly what kind of words to label it with. So I did the Sarabande, I did the required piece, which was a slip jig. It was based on the jig from the second suite. This awesome piece by Evan Primo. And then I had my Daft Chaconne. So, you had like a a jig, a chaconne, a sarabande, a fugue, and a prelude and postlude. So it was kind of knitting the program together. And the Bottesini Gavotte, the Gavotte, again, is like a topic. It's an older style dance. So this is kind of, what's the word? Like, not archaic, the A word that...
Anachronistic?
Anachronistic,
hey!
exactly.
All right, yeah.
That's, I haven't had enough coffee. But yeah, there's something anachronistic about the program. So it has a united concept. And so the last thing I played was this concerto that I wrote after, there was a Violin concerto by Haydn. And that's a longer story, but I programmed that as a finisher. Because typically people end with, a romantic showpiece or something big. And I wanted to end with something classical because I felt like, as I told you earlier, like, the 18th century is very close to my heart. So I wanted to kind of show that. And it was really funny because there's no programs. So people in the audience didn't know what I was playing. And I had a few people come up and ask me, which Sperger concerto was that? And, only a few people recognized the theme at the beginning of the piece. And if you came in the third movement, you might not know. The idea is it's a concerto after Haydn. It's impossible, like the task of kind of a reconstruction based on just those two bars is really impossible. And I know it's impossible. And I'm not trying to, present a barren writer. Look at what I found.
Right.
Because people have done that with Mozart in particular, with the Requiem and many other pieces, some of his earlier piano pieces. But I kind of wanted to present something that is written for the modern bass, but in a galant style. Because all of our repertoire, like our core repertoire, when you really think about it, like, and you go to an audition, you play Von Hall, you play Bach, you play Mozart 35, and none of that was written for the instrument you're playing.
That's true. Yeah.
It's all for different tunings, or different instrument entirely with the Bach.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, in my humble opinion, like most of the problems, I think, with the bass falling behind. I don't want to say we've fallen behind, but we've lagged behind a little bit in our presence as concert instruments. And I think it's because we keep playing repertoire that isn't for what we play. So that's partially my inspiration. Like the whole program was, except for the lute suite arrangement, was music originally for bass and originally for that tuning of the bass. Well, I guess the sarabande is a transcription too. But in general, I feel like you lose resonance when you're not playing in Viennese tuning. And if you're struggling just to achieve resonance and to just kind of get around the instrument and make that compromise, just by statistics, we're not going to grow great musicians, or truly deep musicians, I think, by just trying to work through the compromises of difficult tunings, basically. So that was kind of the generative moment, was when I wanted to write a concerto on this theme of Haydn. It was on an incipit, like a 2-bar phrase that was in his, basically like in his diary.
Right.
And I wanted to kind of expound that in a way that, or expand it in a way that would fit my technique on a bass tuned in fourths. So it's highly idiomatic for me. I don't know if it's highly idiomatic for anyone else, but it's my attempt in the future to hopefully kind of present a piece that people can play without making as many compromises, for resonance at least.
Next up, we have David Grossman of the New York Philharmonic, and this is David talking with myself as well as John Grillo. So you're going to be hearing John starting off this conversation, and then we go into our conversation with Marek Romanowski.
What was on your recital, if you could remember, maybe the big pieces from when you did that, this big tour you were doing? Just to give people a sample of, how you pick the repertoire and from the different periods and stuff like that.
Well, I bit off a lot. I think I mentioned I played the fourth Bach cello suite. It's written in E flat, and I played it fingered in D major, the whole suite. And then I also played Brahms' E minor cello sonata at pitch, and I fingered that in E minor. So my recital was in orchestra tuning, and I would say, I'm very perfection oriented. So I think, a couple weeks before, I had to change my thinking, and I mean not change my thinking, but have a more global perspective in that, I had to play the whole recital through, just for endurance. Also with the Bach, I was playing. I forget if I did all the repeats or most of the repeats. I did a lot of the repeats, and just the endurance of playing the Bach was a huge effort. So on advice from a terrific cellist who retired from the Philharmonic, he would recommend playing in your recital every day, 3 times, 2 weeks before the recital. So on the day of, when you're playing it, it feels like a piece of cake. And I can't say that I followed that advice to the T, but I didn't play it 3 times every day, but I certainly ran it through every day, at least once, and that felt really, really great.
So you'd play the whole recital just straight through, like performance?
Well, I think, let me think. I think what I did was I would play, if I was focusing that part of the practice, on the Bach, I would practice first of all, I would start my day with scales and a vibrato exercise that I have all my students do. And after that first hour, then I would, maybe I would pick on certain spots in the Bach. And then when I was feeling good about that, I would run the Bach. And then I would isolate maybe some spots in the Brahms and run the Brahms. And then maybe, the week before the recital or so, as it approached, I would then, just play through the recital, especially with my pianist, Steve. And because that's a major thing, too. I've always found the first rehearsal of a work with the piano, at least for me, it's like a huge eye-opener. Not so much in, that's how the piece goes. Of course, you should know what the harmony is and what it sounds like. And even if I can look at the piano part at the piano just to understand what's happening. But just, in terms of the intonation being different, being, tempered, and just working within the musician, being open to what they're saying musically, that was always a big eye-opening thing. So making sure you have enough rehearsal time with the pianist is important. And also what I found, actually, this was a very big eye-opener this last time, was recording. I would record my rehearsals with piano and my dress rehearsals and my recitals, and every step of the way, that was a huge learning thing. Not only audio recording, but video recording, to see what I was doing. Was my shoulder hiking up there a little bit? Is that what happened? When the tone got a little thin there, or what have you. And the camera is a tough teacher, but it doesn't lie. It really doesn't lie. And I remember Steve and I, over the course of this week where we were doing this little tour, we were looking at the camera and saying, okay, tonight we'll try this different, and okay, that's that was good, and we'll do this a little better, and it's great to have that available. It's kind of like a teacher for you.
Before the Bradetic competition, it was at the beginning of September, but till end of July I was on holiday, so I didn't have my double bass in my hands for 3 weeks. Some friends of mine, they told me that I'm crazy to do like that. But then, when I came back to Poland, I just took the repertoire. I'm always making like kind of schedule what pieces I will practice during this day, and which aspect of the all particular piece I would like to work on. So I'm not working like just to prepare one piece in 3 days. I'm always picking up one thing like intonation or interpretation or setting up the proper bowing or fingering like that. And let's say I'm doing kind of plan for 3 or 4 days, just checking how the progress is going on. Do I need to correct some of my plan or not? And I'm just actually concentrating only on the program to the competition. Of course, if I have to play something different, then I have to also to practice something different, but usually I'm just practicing the competition program.
Next up, we have a clip from Diego Zecharies, and then we go into my conversation with Jack Unzicker, and it's all about productivity on the iPad and using the iPad to organize your preparation, which really is a huge part of recital preparation. In fact, I've been using my iPad for an upcoming recital here daily, and I don't know what my workflow would be like without it now. I've grown so used to it. So we geek out on that to round out this 8th best of episode. I really hope you've enjoyed these. Let me know, feedback@contrabassconversations.com, and we're going to be digging in with more long-form interviews shortly.
Actually, I'm all the time reading new music.
Yeah.
But sometimes the music is music that is talking to me. I think that the music is picking me up, and not the other way around. I play just the first bars of Mishek and say, why not? Why not? A great piece. And I feel a bit ashamed to tell that, but because everybody's studying that during the university time, and I never read it before. So I say, okay, maybe it's about time I know the piece. And more I got to practice that, more I got interested on that late romantic music. And I think it's a great piece for bass, and respect very much the sonata form that is a dialogue between two players. It's not the piano is not second class. And this is a very dense work. So I love the Mishek. Simon Garcia is a person that you got to meet him.
Oh yeah.
You see 5 seconds with him and you feel at home. No, like you have, okay. So his music is like him, and he has the ability to connect with the heart of the people very, very fast when he's playing, and when he's talking, and his music. So in the way that his music talks to other people, it talks also to me. So I'm very happy to be neighbor for him, because we don't live far away from each other, like 5 kilometers from each other, and to get his music like very fresh. I'm trying a lot of music from Simon. Also in the new CD, I record a lot of pieces from him, because it's someone that must be played, like Andres Martin too.
Wait, so is this 4-score that I'm looking at right
this
now?
This is 4-score.
So 4-score allows you to do, we're looking at purple and blue and all sorts of colors, and Jack's written rehearsal numbers on this, and you use different colors for different rehearsals, right?
Yeah, I would say it's February 2nd, and I just write the date with the color that I'm using that time. Okay. So yeah, you can pick a color and then change it, or it's very handy for using in performance as well, because you have an important repeat or something like that, the coda the third time, that sort of thing. It's handy to use different colors, or if you have repeats all over your page and it's hard to jump from one to the other, you've got some repeats marked in blue and some in red. Right. It's really easy on the eye to be able to tell where to jump to. And Jason was saying earlier that he's used the stamps, so you can use these down bows and up bows that are really, they look like they look like they came with the part. And the funny thing that I've noticed is that I don't trust those as much as the handwritten ones, because I've played
handwrite. Okay.
Yeah, I used to do it really clean and beautiful with like a stamped on number 4 instead of the fingering but I've gotten so used to doing cello transcriptions, and it's got the cello fingerings in there, and not really paying attention to those fingerings. But if I see this huge mess of fingerings that are like that, and I see one handwritten one of my fingers, just one, that's the one that I know I've got to, if I play that one, then everything else in the passage is intuitive. So, yeah, it's funny. I've made that realization. I'm more likely to follow the bowings and such if I handwrite them.
Interesting. So, makes sense.
Who knew? Who knew? So yeah, and then being able to share the PDF all marked up and send it to a chamber music group, and it's really handy. Or coaching a lesson when they get really close to the performance time and so forth, and we don't need to be writing out like exercises and typing out things, and so I use that tool different times depending on where we are in the process. But if somebody comes in and they want to play their like excerpt list for an audition, it's so great to pull up the score, a fresh copy of it each time they play, and because you can save different versions of it. Right. So pull up a fresh version, do the markings on it. Here's what I heard. Here's this and that and that, and then you can have a clean copy again, and it's just super. And with IMSLP and other stuff, like I have violists come and they want to play a Brahms sonata for me. Okay, hold on just a second. And in 90 seconds, I've got the whole score, the whole piano score with me for coaching or something. And it's great. It's a super handy tool.
Well, and Foursquare is so great because you can organize the music in different ways with it.
Yeah.
Right. You can. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I can show him my set lists for the things that I have coming up. So my chamber music I'm doing this time, the all-state repertoire that I work on for clinics and workshops and some private students. I have my next Fort Worth program, my next Plano program. I have some of my recital program for this coming year. So I'm doing 2 recitals coming up, a chamber music recital and a chamber music. No, the other one is a duo. Just got this in the works where we're going to do Laurie Laitman's Holocaust 1944.
Oh, wow.
That's for bass baritone voice and double bass, like 45-minute piece with just the 2 of us. So that's going to be great. And then other stuff is like Vaughn Williams piano quintet, Laurie Laitman, 4 on the floor. Sorry. Libby Larson, 4
on the floor.
4 on
I know
the floor.
that piece. Yeah.
Laurie Laitman is the Holocaust, and Schulhoff concertina. So that'll be a bass-centered chamber music piece, and then after this competition, I mean, there's so much repertoire that is new that I would like to learn, and stuff that I've kind of worked on a little bit here and there. That I would love to do again, or stuff that I've played in our performances, but to hear it with some fresh take and such great artistry is really inspiring to go back and do more of that.
That's going to do it for this best of episode. Thank you so much to Krista Copper for going through and cataloging and organizing all these topics. It makes these sort of episodes possible, and I think it's a really cool direction. Thank you also to everybody else involved in Contrabass Conversations, Steve Hinchy, Michael Cooper, our audio editors, Mitch Mooring, who puts these episodes together, and Trevor Jones, who publishes and promotes all of these. Thank you so much. Reach out to me at feedback@contrabassconversations.com, and I am your host, Jason Heath. We'll be back soon with more life on the low end of the spectrum.